Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Instagram, and MeWe. And of course, be sure to visit mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
Leave right now. The guy in the gray hoodie is robbing the bank.
Who's in charge here?
Well, she is, but we're both.
I'm the manager. Estelle Valerie.
Still, once they leave, you lock the front and back doors, you understand me? You lock them all.
Got the FBI, the GBI, everybody here.
I'm sorry, okay?
This is Sergeant Bernard. Is everyone all right in there?
As long as everybody stays calm, nobody gets hurt. I have a bomb, and I'm gonna kill myself and everybody in here. Lock them hands and I'm there.
Hey there, this is the Windy Hills Wells Fargo?
Yes, ma'am, this is the Wells Fargo?
Yeah, I need to talk to Bridget about my 401k. I think she made a $9,000 mistake.
I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am. Can I take a message for you? Fraud was committed. The VA stole my disability check from me.
I've had some problems with veteran affairs myself. How about you release one of those ladies?
No. I need everybody to see what's happening here. I need the fire trucks. I need the news cameras.
You have my undivided attention.
I don't want the bank's money.
I'm gonna work this out, brother to brother.
I do not have as much time as you think I do.
Snipers are in place.
Coming through.
Get the blinds.
Get the lights! What do I need to do to get the attention that I need right now?
Everything you say, everything you do, it matters.
You matter. So all you got to do now is just make good, Brian. Just make good.
You ever been robbed before?
Once.
How'd it end?
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 516. Releasing March 28 on digital is Breaking, a crime drama based on a tragic true story of how in 2017, Iraq War veteran Brian Brown Easley took hostage the employees of a Wells Fargo bank in a desperate last attempt to highlight the systematic failures of the Department of Veteran Affairs towards men like himself. A true crime story, thrilling and heartbreaking in its portrayal of a desperate man caught in a tragic situation, Breaking features fantastic performances from John Boyega and the late great Michael K. Williams, and also marks the latest film from director Abi Damaris Corbin, who I'm glad to say joins me now on the podcast. Abi, how are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for the warm introduction. It's my debut feature, so I'm very happy to talk about it.
And it's an impressive one as well. And, you know, when I watch a movie like Breaking, it kind of reminds me in a lot of ways why I love movies, because sometimes movies come along that are based on true stories, true events, that reminds you of people that have been lost in the funnel of time. People like a Solomon Northup or a Desmond Doss, people who never heard of before, and you watch movies based on them and you're reminded of their history. And I think when it came to Brian's story, that's something that very much happened with me when I watched Breaking. This is an incident that happened in 2017, but from what I've heard in my research, it wasn't until 2019 that you received a message from your manager, a link to this story, this incident, this bank robbery gone tragic. What was it about this story, this Brian's story, that really kind of spoke to you, not only as a person, but as a filmmaker? What was happening to you as a storyteller, as a filmmaker? I was getting kind of those juices flowing in regards to this is a story that not only can be seen, but I can really do something with this story and make sure people can see it in the right light.
I really appreciate that question. As a person, the reason my manager sent it over is because he knew my dad's story. My dad's a veteran, a Navy guy. He got Agent Orange when he was over in Vietnam. And it changed the course of his life. He went from being an athlete, changed the course of all our lives, really, from being an athlete to being in a wheelchair. And he still really hasn't received all of his benefits from the VA, as is the story of many veterans. So as a person, I couldn't walk away. My heart was pierced by Brian's story. It was a snapshot of so many stories that I'd heard: the righteous rage, the call to justice, the longing for a purer, more perfect world. All of that was in his story in that day, and in the wrapper of a very imperfect man. And as an artist, that calls to me, because I love to watch stories about two wrong choices. So often in life, we just don't have options that are great. And art, we talk about that. I also love a frenetic pulse as a director, as a creative. I love to be able to give my actors immense challenges and help them, enable them to have a space to create those moments that will get under your skin as an audience, that will allow you to see better. So there's a lot of reasons I was drawn to it: the pulse of it, the heart of it, the genre bending sense of it, because it's not a straight thriller, it's not a straight drama, it's not so many different things. It's a bunch of things all together. And I knew that to successfully deliver that as an artist was a challenge, and I need that.
One thing that I really love about this film is that John Boyega's performance in it, I think, is just incredible. I mean, he's one of my favorite actors working today. And I think what I love about him, he's able to get underneath the skin of his characters in such an impressive way. And Brian is such an interesting man in that he's this kind of like mild-mannered, spectacled man. He's got this jittery kind of nervous energy about him, but he's also a man of really stalwart kind of principle as well. And a kind of deep reservoir of love and spirituality. When it came to John to try to tap into those kind of those type of elements of the character, how does he go about doing so? What do you see from him in regards to getting into under the skin of this man? Is it constant communication with the family? Is it any type of news footage of the day? How does he go about kind of like taking this, getting the skin of this man and kind of like presenting the way that he did? Because it really is an outstanding performance.
John's one of my favorite working actors too. So I love hearing you say that. I have such respect for his craft and his art. And there's also a little bit of Boyega magic in there that is honed over time. He does the work. He's honed his body as an instrument. So he's able to fall into the posture of a man who was had a back injury in Iraq, and then suddenly he'll forget the injury and you'll see his posture change and he'll become alert like he is still in the Marines. And then you'll see him fall into his own body, kind of collapse inward in a way that you can tell he's experiencing just an immense measure of shame. And a man who's been stripped from his very marrow, the marrow of his bones, the dignity has been stripped out of him. John has an immense command of his craft. There's this one scene in which he's talking to Connie Britton on the phone as Brian, right? And he has this big explosion. Wait. And then he goes into this black box. He's almost scared himself. And the transition to that quiet moment where your soul is starting to bubble over was hard for us to capture on set, because both of us knew it wasn't quite playing just yet. And we both knew it. He had just such a sensitivity, and both of us were watching for the truth of it, because we knew for Brian's story to be heard, we couldn't have one false moment in the performance, which is such a high demand on an actor. And to walk that fine line, we found that so many people, when they're depressed, they hide it, right? Behind layers and layers of things. So you see in that moment, the way John plays it, is him crying, but there's a smile on his face. And just that's craft, that's art, that's heart, that's emotional awareness, and that's tenacity. All of those things together in that moment. I'm so excited for the catalog of films that he's going to produce and act in down the line. He's an immense talent.
He really is. And what's interesting about Breaking is that you have inside the bank this kind of like this character piece of what John's doing, but then outside the bank, you're kind of seeing these police procedures happening, this really kind of busy kind of beehive of activity. But while it's all kind of like part of this one kind of, I'm sure, system of like procedures and such, it almost seems like it's kind of disconnected at the same time. There doesn't seem to be a real kind of flow through between these different departments. It seems like every man for themselves out there. When it came to that incident, in regards to the police reaction towards it, what have you learned about what police procedures are in regards to that type of hostage situation? Is what happened in that situation different than what should have happened by textbook kind of definition of things, or what we're seeing play out is kind of like the chaotic nature of the reaction? Is that something that's kind of more commonplace than we would even imagine?
It's hard for me to speak to other situations, but I know in this one, there were things that should have happened that didn't. And as a consequence of some of those things not happening, there was immense disconnection, but there was also things that did happen the way that they were supposed to. And the laws were just not enough. They have, since quite a few of them have been changed as a result of Brian's death. But even then, there is a call to go further. There is a deep need for mental health services in this country, in many countries and around the world. And I do hope that Brian's having this conversation around Brian and mental health can be a small part of that awareness and changing things. We've gotten, and I say we, me, myself, the producers, the actors, so many people that worked on this project, have gotten so many messages of people who say, this is my story. Not in the sense that, like Brian, they walked into a bank and said, give me my money, but in the sense that the mental strains, veteran or just someone who feels deeply alone, are very real.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you will love. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon. The world's leading online store, Amazon is your first stop to buy a wide range of products at competitive prices with fast delivery times. Amazon is also a world-class entertainment hub that includes Prime Video, Audible, Twitch, Amazon Music, and more. Sign up with Amazon today and experience the best in online shopping and entertainment. Please support Matt's Movie Reviews on Patreon. Get access to exclusive content, request movie reviews and top 10 lists, and help support my work. Please click on the Patreon link in the description below. Michael K. Williams, who plays the hostage negotiator in the film, he delivers a great performance as well. What's interesting about the dynamic between him and John Boyega in the film is that you don't see him on the screen at the same time in the movie because, of course, it didn't happen in real life. A lot of their communication is done through the phone. As a director yourself, how do you go about directing those scenes? Do you have your actors say their lines through a phone? Do you have them off camera? How do you go about kind of achieving that kind of dynamic between them? Because, of course, it comes down to great acting because these men are professional actors, and Michael K. Williams, God bless him, was one of the best to do it. But when it comes to those scenes between them, how do you achieve that organic nature between the communication between the two, especially since they're not on screen together at the same time? I'm just really curious about that.
That was one of my primary concerns in writing this and then going into the project as a director. Couple things. First off, you get your actors in the same room so that you can actually create that intimacy. And then I put Mike in a room adjacent to John so that he couldn't see him, or John in 110-degree weather outside with Mike out of his eye line, so that they could play off of each other, but we wouldn't have to worry about the phone disconnecting in the middle of a take or something like that, or not being able to get clean audio, which is a real concern, so that we could edit properly. It's a real logistics nightmare for my blessed unit production managers and assistant directors and all those folks to level up to, but they really did. They figured out the schedule of it with us, and the actors were just there for each other. And those performances that you see, it's because the actors were really generous with each other and with their schedules, and the producers were kind in listening to me, and actually facilitating that when I said, no, we have to have both actors on set, even the one that's not on screen, which is, like you noted, a very normal thing for the actor who's not on screen to be absent.
Final question. There's a number that stands out from this movie, $892.34. That was the amount owed to Brian from the Department of Veteran Affairs. And it seems like such a small number to many people, but for him, it was the entire world. And I think when it comes to his motivations, two things that kind of come to mind for me. One of them was principle. There's a matter of principle in regards to who he was worth as a person and how he should be treated. And the other one as well, I thought, was humiliation. The film cuts back and forth at an incident at the Veteran Affairs when he's arrested, really violently so, I have to say. And I think from that kind of stemmed what we see happening in the bank. Those two things of principle and humiliation really can, I think, influence a lot of what happened with Brian at that time. Is that something, do you think, kind of like you felt as well in regards to Brian's actions? I mean, we can't get inside his head, but as a character in the movie, I imagine those two very powerful emotions went a long way into portraying the motivations behind what happened with him that day.
We did our best to be honoring him and his motivations as a man. We spoke with his wife, Jessica. We listened to the tapes, the recordings of what happened that day. But I think as much as we can, we did honor his intentions. It's one man's sincere-hearted rebellion against a broken system. He knew he was rebelling. He knew what it was, and he walked into that bank anyway.
Well, I know that a goal for you with this movie was to capture Brian through the lens of love, and I think you really accomplished that with this film. And for everyone out there listening, March 28 on digital in Australia, breaking, I really recommend check this film out. If people out there are like me, love those 1970s character-driven kind of movies where great actors are able to do great performances and the filmmaking is just really incredible, I really recommend watching Breaking, because it's a film that for me has really kind of floored me when I watched it, and I absolutely love that because I watch so many films every week, and to watch a movie like this is fantastic. And Abby, I thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations for your movie, your feature film debut. You really knocked it out of the park, and I hope we can see you again on doing great work, and hopefully we can talk again when that happens. It's been a pleasure.
I look forward to that time. Thank you so much for the great questions. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content. Also, if you would like to request a review and support my work, please join my Patreon via the link in the description below.